What's up, it's Cinema Shogun here, and well, it appears the cat is finally out of the bag. The ratings are in, and it turns out no one is watching The Rings of Power. In fact, it came in 4th place, behind House of the Dragon, She-Hulk, and some CyberPunk anime that I didn't even know existed. Seriously, people, you know it's bad when a freaking cyberpunk anime is getting watched more than The Rings of Power. Now, I have nothing against cyberpunk. I've never played the game, but we're not going to sit here and pretend like cyberpunk is as big of an IP as The Lord of the Rings. People love The Lord of the Rings all around the world for generations. Yet this random anime based on a video game that's on Netflix is getting more views than The Rings of Power. And then let's think about She-Hulk. Man, oh man, I was thinking about reviewing She-Hulk on this channel, but the show is so damn bad that there's nothing worth reviewing. It's worse than The Rings of Power almost. It's only shorter, therefore it's easier to watch, but man, it's horrible as well. But even if She-Hulk was peak MCU, even if She-Hulk was as good as the comic books, and I really like She-Hulk comics, it still should not be rating higher than The Rings of Power. I mean, they could deliver the best Marvel show yet. She-Hulk could be a 10 out of 10 masterpiece. And it should still not be getting more views and more recognition than a Lord of the Rings property. Lord of the Rings is a big name. I'm not saying that Marvel isn't a big name. Of course it is. She-Hulk, not so much. I definitely think that Lord of the Rings, a Lord of the Rings television show, should be able to compete with this pile of crap that we're calling She-Hulk. Now, the House of the Dragon, that's not really a surprise, but it goes to show that the Game of Thrones IP in just the last few years has become more profitable than The Lord of the Rings. Now, if the Lord of the Rings show was good, and it had good word of mouth, and it wasn't marketed purely on diversity, and they weren't all over the headlines and the tabloids on freaking talk shows, The View, calling all of the Tolkien fans racist, then maybe they would have done better in the ratings. But you really have to think about how big of a failure this is for Amazon. The Rings of Power, the most expensive TV show of all time. Now, when you have the most expensive TV show of all time, you can't rely on regular ratings to get you by. In order to sustain the most expensive TV show of all time, you have to get some of the best ratings of all time. Yet here we have it. The Rings of Power isn't even the 4th most watched TV show right now. And take into account the fact that this little list isn't even, showing like how many people have watched the new Dahmer series on Netflix, which would also far surpass The Rings of Power. But like I was just saying, if you're the biggest, most expensive TV show in the history of the world, you're going to need to bring in some of the biggest numbers in the history of the world, correct? I mean, anything short of like peak Game of Thrones viewership for The Rings of Power is a complete failure. The Rings of Power isn't even coming close to that. The Rings of Power isn't even coming close to She-Hulk numbers. Okay, The Rings of Power is behind a freaking Netflix anime. Not even like a legendary, awesome anime created in Japan that everyone loves, like Naruto or Dragon Ball Z or My Hero or One Piece or whatever the hell people are watching these days. No, some random off-put Netflix anime with literally no marketing hardly at all behind it, because I have Netflix. I was just watching Netflix. I'm online 24/7 talking about movies, and I didn't even know this thing existed. Yet it's got more views than the Rings of Power. But yeah, the Rings of Power would have to sustain like crazy numbers. It would on a weekly basis have to bring in crazy numbers in order to justify how much money they spent on the show. Meanwhile, not only is this show not one of the most viewed shows of all time, it's not even the most viewed show of the current time. It's like number 4. So this thing has been a complete and utter failure, and I love to see it. And by love to see it, I don't mean the episodes, because I haven't watched hardly any of them. I have enjoyed watching people review them and absolutely eviscerate them and destroy them more than watching the show, because the characters are unlikable. I cannot get past Galadriel, man. The looks on her face, the Mary Sue-ness of it all. It's one of the worst things I've ever watched. And then it all led up to this battle that was a very lackluster battle. It's almost laughable what they're doing with this show. I can't believe they thought that this was a good product, let alone that it could stand up to like the Peter Jackson films. What in the hell are they doing? They did like 6 episodes of build-up for one of the worst on-screen battles I've ever seen. Seriously, we were seeing better fights in like the Xena and or it's what's her name, freaking the Hercules show and stuff back in the day. This has been absolutely terrible. The ratings show that as well. The only reason it's even in 4th place is off of Tolkien's name and the Lord of the Rings name. If this was something else, it wouldn't even be close. You know, I think people are still tuning in because they're trying to like this show. Some people are desperately trying to like this show, but I don't think it's going to get any better. You know, if you've sat through 6 episodes and you think that miraculously the next episode's going to all of a sudden be a masterpiece, I mean, I wish you luck. But let me know how you feel about this down in the comments below. While you're down there, hit that thumbs up button, hit that subscribe button, ring that notification bell, and I'll talk to you all on the next video.